Welcome to There is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell. I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I'm the owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs and have been in business since 1994. That is 30 years, and this year we're celebrating a 30th year anniversary. I think it's pretty cool to do something you love for 30 years. The purpose of this podcast is to get the real deal of what really works, and most importantly, why things work. Hence the name, The Method to the Madness. Today, I'm going to talk about something so critical for everybody, and that is how do we strengthen our lower back and how do we exercise around it? Man, that's huge. It's huge. Before I get to that, let me thank Jonathan and Lynn Gilden of the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They are committed to providing the highest level of customer service, and they have the real estate sales and the reviews to back that up. So give them a shout at 386-451-2412. So let's talk about that pesky lower back issue or back issue, spine issue. Do you realize that over 80% of the population will have low back pain at some point in their life? That's a huge statistic. It's very, very common. And I can tell you, back pain and a back injury is absolutely or can be debilitating. I've had different injuries through the years and never hurt my lower back majorly, which I'm very thankful for. I'm glad. But I have tweaked it before where I pulled a muscle in the lower back, and you really can't do much of anything. And of course, that sucks. I've had ankle injuries. That's no fun. But at least you can still get around and do many, many things, including cycling and swimming and most weightlifting and things like that. And your daily life is not compromised too much. I've had knee injuries. Same thing. You can get around them. I've had elbow injuries. Same thing. Get around it. Shoulder injuries, get around it. So in other words, none of these things are pleasant. None of these things are fun. But there are other things you can do to exercise. There are as well with the lower back. But when that pain is severe, when it becomes debilitating, there's really not much you can do. I mean, everything hurts it. So it really sucks. But the good news is, in most instances, it's very, very, very preventable and something we can keep from happening. Many of my clients have had lower back pain, and that's why they originally came to the gym. I might sound like a broken record, but one of the things I really, really enjoy about what I do for a living as an exercise physiologist is those types of things. Like when I get people that want to improve their body due to injury, so we can call it what we want, rehab it. I like to call it prehab sometimes because we don't have to get injuries. I mean, there's many things we can do to avoid them. But when I get people that that's their main issue, I typically will take them as clients if I have room, because it's the area I most enjoy working with people on because it's so concrete. And we see many, many, many benefits. Like, I can't think of an instance where somebody came to me for lower back pain, for neck pain, for shoulder pain, for knee pain, and that was their main issue, that they didn't get better. I mean, could it have happened? Maybe. In the 30 years, I can't remember that ever happening. Now, I wish that was the case for another common reason people call trainers, and that is to lose weight. And you just don't, as a trainer, have the success because there's very little you can control. You can lead a horse to water, so to say, but you can't make them drink. You can give them the diet. They're not going to follow it all the time. You can tell them how much they need to exercise, and they may or may not. So there's a lot of variables outside of our control, and it's very, very frustrating. But that is not the case when we have body aches and pain and people that want to work on ADLs. So I outlined the case. 80% of Americans have had back pain at some point in their life. And, a good percentage of people have had serious back issues where they're off from work. They are potentially need surgery. So, of course, it gets a little worse than back pain. And Now I want to share with you the brilliant, the great news is that we can make it better, but so many people don't know how. One of the big mistakes people make is they don't strengthen their lower back. They don't do it ahead of time as, like I said, prehabilitation, and they're afraid to do it afterwards because once you've hurt your back, as I said, you get pretty spooked because you don't want to hurt it again. And I get it. But by not strengthening your lower back, you are setting yourself up for a re-injury. And we don't want that. It's very preventable. So, a lot of people, when they go to the gym, say they want to train their legs, they want to train their abs, they want to train their biceps, they want to train their pecs. Rarely have I heard a person say, man, I want to go to the gym and get my low back swole. I want my low back ripped, right? You just don't see it. So I think that's one of the reasons why the low back is just kind of ignored, neglected, because it's not an area that you just think of as, looking good or whatever. You just don't think of that. Nowadays, more and more people are thinking about going to the gym to prevent injuries and for health reasons. So that's improved a little bit, but it's still not an area that people are overly consumed with, and they should be. The second reason, as I already outlined, is people are afraid. They think if they do back exercises, they're going to hurt their back. I don't know where that came from, because when you really think about it, that's really ignorant thinking, right? I mean, and I use that in the correct term, in the correct sense of what it is, which is you don't know better. I don't mean they're stupid. It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how are you going to hurt your lower back on a lower back exercise if you do it correctly? More people in the gym hurt their lower back doing exercises not for their lower back. Like, I would venture to guess that more people have hurt their lower back from improperly squatting under a bar than they ever have doing a hyperextension or a back extension machine. I mean, I'd bet the farm on that. And, even deadlifts, which some people cringe at, oh, that'll hurt my back. It's like, no, not if you do it right. I mean, if you do it right, it's one of the best things you can do for your lower back. So I think that is totally a myth, and it's something that I want everybody listening to this to understand. I was prompted to do this podcast because somebody who follows me on social media asked me a question regarding their lower back and how to exercise around it. And I thought, this would be a great podcast because he's not alone. There are so many people that have these questions, and it's just something we can do something about. So the first something we need to do is we need to think about strengthening our lower back. We can't be afraid of it. I mean, we teach our clients all the time, let pain be the guide. So anything that you do, if there's pain, don't do it. First, modify, meaning change the range of motion, change the load perhaps, and if that doesn't work, change the exercise. So never do something through pain. But we do have to understand that there's a difference between pain and discomfort. The only way we get better at anything is being uncomfortable. I mean, we don't get better by doing things that are comfortable for us, right? I mean, that's just not the way the stress adaptation syndrome works. We have to stress ourselves greater than we've been stressed before if we're going to see any benefits. So we really have to pay attention to the difference between pain and discomfort. If we're doing a lower back exercise, like, I just love using the lower back machine, the selectorized machine, whether it be a Precor like we have, the old Nautilus one, Cybex, whatever. I mean, it specifically loads the lower back muscles in the way that they should be loaded. I mean, to me, that's my first go-to if the person has it. And of course, we do have it here. But if you're doing the movement, even though that's what it's for, and you feel like a sharp pain, or as soon as you finish, you have more pain, okay, that's pain. That's not good. But if you feel a burning in your lower back muscles, which are called the spinal erectors or erector spinae, that's a good thing. that means those muscles are being stressed and they are going to come back stronger and better. So that is what we want. And sometimes it's not muscular stress and sometimes it's not pain, it's mild discomfort. Well, in many cases, we do have to work through that sometimes because it can often be scar tissue from maybe a prior surgery, or it just could be a little bit of irritation. So there is some subjectivity we have to use. But the real lesson here is we have to strengthen our lower back and fight through some of the discomfort. Because if the lower back stays atrophied, it's going to get hurt again. I worked with Dr. Fulton for many, many years. I ran his personal training over there at his facility here in Daytona Beach. And some of the studies he did, and he did at the University of Florida, was that a stronger back is a back that doesn't get injured, plain and simple. He was able to monitor that on his famous Med-X lower back machine. And what it did was it showed you exactly the strength that the lower back had through an isometric contraction. What he found was as the patient's strength levels went up, their back pain went down. Those are just documented research. You can look those up. And he's considered one of the premier back physicians around who always recommended strengthening the lower back before you do anything else. And I absolutely agree with that. So we know we have to make the lower back stronger. Okay? That's the first thing. Second thing is you hear people oftentimes mistakenly always say strengthen your core. Strengthen your core. Strengthen your core. Go to Pilates, strengthen your core. Go to yoga, strengthen your core. Okay, not that those two things are bad at all, and not that strengthening your core is bad, but it's misunderstood. The main part of the core that you need to strengthen is your rector spinae, your lower back. Sometimes overstimulating, overstrengthening your abdominals, especially your rectus abdominals that are responsible for forward flexion, can actually create more harm than good. Because what happens is you're creating a muscle imbalance where those muscles are pulling your spine slightly forward and allowing your rector spinae to atrophy. So sometimes doing a lot of crunches and things like that are actually making the problem worse. We don't need to overdo our abdominal muscles to strengthen them appropriately. Oftentimes when you see people have a lot of lower back pain, they have tremendously developed ab muscles. And it's like, well, you're overdoing it. You're creating a muscle imbalance. Anytime you strengthen one side more than the other, you're going to have problems. And let's face it, people go to the gym. They mistakenly think spot reduction works. They do like 1,000 crunches, or they do a ton of abs on the ab machine, or they're doing hundreds of ball crunches. And you say, you're going to do your lower back? Oh, yeah, I'll do a set of spinal extensions at the end. I'll do a set of 20. Oh, okay, you just did basically 500 reps of abdominals and you're going to do 20 lower back. I mean, that's how people think. They're wrong. Number one, there's no such thing as spot reduction. If we want a six-pack, if we want great abs, if you want abs like a bodybuilder or abs like a bikini model, and you have the genetics for it, well, you better think about changing your diet, because abs, my friend, are made in the kitchen. They are not made by the type of exercise you do. All you're doing is most likely overdeveloping your abdominals and allowing your rector spinae to get underdeveloped and atrophy. So that's the next thing. Don't overdo your abs. I'm not saying don't do your abs. I'm saying don't overdo your abs. Make sure that it's balanced. And then finally, work around it in the gym. If you are prone to lower back pain, don't do bar squats. Don't do Smith machine squats. Do bodyweight squats or goblet squats when your back is strong enough to tolerate the load. In other words, don't put your spine through spinal compression when you don't need to. And you know what? Most of us don't need to. Like, I wish you can watch me right now, because I'm literally doing it with my hands right now. So I want you to imagine this. Take your upper hand and your lower hand about maybe 2 feet apart, and start bringing it together, right? So that's what compression is. So when you're doing that on your spine, you can get problems. And when you're putting, say, 200 pounds on your spine, which is fine if you don't have any issues. And don't get me wrong, I love squats, and squats done properly are great. But if you're prone to lower back pain, meaning you've hurt your back before or you're going through it now, don't do it. Don't do it. There are other ways to strengthen your leg muscles than to do exercises that are going to exacerbate your low back pain. Work your way around it. This is rule number 3. Work your way around it. And that's true for every exercise. When I work with people who have lower back pain, getting through it, rehabbing it, got plenty, as I said, I like to do predominantly most of their exercises seated with a backrest behind them so they have support. And they're going to do like arm curls seated with support, shoulder raises with support. I like to do most of the exercises seated so they can keep their spine erect and they're not forward flexing their spine until they're ready for that. So if we do that, if we do the exercises around the spine and most of them seated, like your hip abductors, your leg extensions, your leg curls, your seated calves, your seated row with chest support, your seated press with back support, your seated shoulder raises with back support, your seated curls and seated triceps with torso support. And then you're doing your exercises you should be doing, like I don't neglect the abdominals, I just don't overdo them. And then, of course, your lower back muscles, you are going to strengthen your body to make it bulletproof, essentially. And that's what I want. One last thing and one final story on this. I have a guy I work with, he's a physician, and I've told this story before, I will tell it again. And when he first came to me, he was referred by a chiropractor who refers to me, and basically the chiropractor told him, we did what we can do, and you're in pretty good shape now. Like, you're out of pain. You need to go see Rob because, he's going to effectively strengthen your spine. And he did. And he comes to me, and, he's a physician, as I said, he's a psychiatrist. And I was working with him, and I told him, and he's, he was an athlete in college, athlete in high school, and he was very nervous about his lower back. And again, I get it, man. It sucks when it hurts, and he's got to work. He's got to put food on the table. He's got to see his patients. He can't have a back problem anymore. So at first maybe week or so, he was very tentative about anything that we were doing. And I finally said to him one day, I said, when you give psychotropic medication to your patients, and you know that that's good for them. He says, sure, I do that. I said, of course. I said, are any of them nervous about taking the medication, whether it be because they're afraid it's going to change their personality or they're afraid of side effects, or they're just tentative about taking medicine? He says, of course, yeah, I get that. I get that a lot. I said, okay, but that's what they need to do. Like, you being the expert knows that, it's okay to be a little fearful of side effects, of course. Like, I'm not saying like, never have any apprehension or anything. I'm just saying that most of the time, if not all the time, the physician knows best, right? They're not going to have you do something that, they think is going to harm you. They're really doing something that, in their expert opinion, is good for you. He says, yeah, of course. Like, yeah, I know that, and they're fearful. I said, okay, get it? Like, I need you to strengthen your back and drop some of the fear. Because if you're always nervous about strengthening the lower back, you're going to stay like that patient that won't take their medicine. And he got it. The light went on. And you know what? That was about 7-8 years ago. And after about 6 months, we didn't even talk about the back anymore. Like, he was good. We still don't. Every once in a while, he'll say, I gotta, it's usually not even his back, actually. Sometimes it might be a hamstring, but he might say, gotta watch this a little bit. And, I'm going to address it with Ellen because he goes to weekly massage, as well. But the point is, we don't really deal with it anymore. Like, he's fixed. He knows how to use proper posture when he walks and stands now. When he picks up dumbbells off the floor, he bends his knees and keeps his spine erect. And we have strengthened him. His muscles are strong. And now he works on other things, which is so cool to see. And we barely talk about his back, if ever. Because, now he's one of the best runners in his age group for 5Ks. He wins the Senior Olympics, and don't laugh. Senior means 50 and over. whenever I say that, he's not old. He's over 50. He wins divisions of basketball and sprinting. And what else? I don't know. He's done a few different things. He always competes in our Max Fit games and often medals and wins the age group. I mean, we're working on other things, which is so cool, but it all came from him dropping the fear. All right? That's what we got to do, people. Strengthen the lower back. Don't overemphasize the abdominals and work around it with the other exercises. Got it? Now I want you to get the best garage door in Daytona Beach, because Overhead Door of Daytona is the best, owned by Jeff and Zach Hawk. I totally recommend them. I've known Jeff for 30 years. Speaking of back, man, we've strengthened that bad boy's back right there. I mean, I was just thinking of that. I mean, thought about his low back in a long time either. So anyway, check out Overhead Door of Daytona Beach. They can be reached at overheaddordaytona.com.